DJing in the past decade has expanded far and beyond two turntables. The line between the DJ and the producer are becoming ever more blurred, and technology has opened up many exciting creative possibilities for bedroom DJs, as well as superclub residents. Alongside seasoned DJs, bands and artists are now cottoning on to the money-making and promotional opportunities of DJ sets, as they are already seen as arbiters of taste. Today, we're going to be looking at new technology, new DJ technology, how it's radically changed the role and what's expected from DJ performance, and how you can make the best use of all these new tools that are on offer. We'll be looking specifically at James and his setup and how he's used his equipment to get the sound that he wants, as well as giving you guys advice and tips on how to get the most of what you've got at home. Joining me is one of the most evolutionary and forward-thinking DJs in dance music today. Please welcome James Zabila.
Hello.
That look of fear. That's all right. You're live in Maida Vale Studios. So a quick chat first before we get into the toys. So just tell us, how did you first get into DJing?
I had a rave dad. He was a hardcore raver back in '92, and used to go out raving, listening to Carl Cox and Sven Vath, and he'd bring home all these techno mixtapes, of which pulsated through my bedroom floor, much to my hatred of dance music at that time, because I was really into Nirvana. I think when you're that age, you naturally go against what your parents are into. And yeah, I couldn't stand it. And I started working a record shop where my dad worked, actually, on a Saturday, just doing a Saturday job. And then, I don't know, it just sort of made sense one day. I think it just has to be really loud, and it sounds good. And you just sort of get into the groove of it. I think it's an acquired taste, a lot of like the techno stuff that my dad was listening to anyway. It was a million miles away from the sort of grungy stuff that I liked when I was 12. So that's sort of how I got into into electronic music.
And what was your first ever DJ setup like? How did it all start?
It was pretty ghetto, actually. I had two belt-driven SoundLab turntables, and they were impossible to mix on. It was like spinning plates. A part of that was the fun, though, because once you could mix on those, you could sort of mix on anything. You can go into a club and, yeah, it would sort of be easy to mix on more professional equipment. But yeah, they were just held together by rubber bands, basically. And I had a made-to-fade cam mixer from Argos. Other catalogue stores are available. And yeah, I think it went rusty after a while because I sweated over it too much. I think it still works, though.
I think it's important for people to hear that, because they always think they can't do anything unless they've got, like, you know, the latest pioneer gear, but you can actually. Yeah, it was humble beginnings, quite important. Yeah,
it was super basic, the setup, and then I got one of the first CDJs, like the big square box ones, with the sprung lid. I used to fire wrestling figures at my girlfriend, because it sort of had a springy lid and it would flip up like that. It would only work sometimes, every time you push the eject button, maybe once in 5 times. It was like Russian roulette with stormtroopers. Anyway, we're not together anymore. But
we'll get into your Star Wars obsession later.
Yeah.
So just briefly for our audience here in Maida Vale and for our listeners online, just give us a brief overview of your kind of career to date. What was your first break and how you got to where you are today?
Well, I started playing locally in Southampton, which is where I'm from, and I used to do a lot of gigs for free, and like I'd do a gig at a place called the Old Oriental once a month with Artful Dodger and Craig David. Yeah, it was proper beau, until I got sacked for not playing enough garage music. I went to Acid House with them, I think. But it worked out because it just made me try harder and find places where I could actually play the music that I liked. And eventually, I got my break through meeting Sasha and John Digweed, and I won a music magazine competition as well. And it all sort of kicked off at the same time. I used to go up to London to Bedrock and Fabric with my my big sweatpants on, full of mixtapes. And yeah, I was a security guy's nightmare. I was going through the metal detector, taking all these CDs and tapes out of my pockets, but it was worth it.
So you'd be making those to hopefully give to the likes of John Digweed or someone?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And yeah, Richard Sounds used to do a thing where you could walk in and claim a free tape. So I'd just go in every day and get a new blank tape. I was pretty poor at the time. All my money went on on vinyl. Literally everything I owned, everything I earned was spent on vinyl, and the occasional cheese sandwich at lunchtime.
So you still had a day job at that point?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of your kind of major influences, who would you cite in the DJs that kind of you looked up to the most when you were starting out, apart from me?
Well, it's funny you should say that, actually. I've got this. I used to listen to this CD quite a lot, and it's you, Sasha, and Carl Cox and Oakenfold.
You can't buy them anymore. What is that, by the way?
You can find it on eBay.
There you go. It's got Radio 1 logo on it. That's good.
You get a bit of promotion. But yeah, that's, I grew up listening to you guys and your radio show on a Friday night, and I was a proper nerdy train spotter, so I wrote down all the songs that I liked. I went to the record fair. There was a record fair once a month in Southampton, and I try and sort of buy all the promos that weren't out for 6 months. I think I was the first person that I knew of, and probably the first person in Southampton to have a copy of Tori Amos' Professional Widow, the Arm Van Helden mix, which you signed, I believe, and then no one could get it for ages. So I used to have people coming into the record shop offering me all sorts of crazy money for that for a while. But yeah, I grew up listening to that, and I used to borrow mixtapes from the shop and put them back for sale the next day. I used to cycle home and listen to these mixtapes, having never even been in a club. So I didn't really understand how electronic music or rave music translated in a live atmosphere. It was all really about just the music and listening to it at home, and whilst I was cycling about Southampton, being a menace, And I remember one day I went and saw Sasha at the Manor in Ringwood, which is no longer open, which is a shame because it was a great club. And it all made sense, just like, he's a great DJ to listen to on tape or as a recorded set, because he told a story with his music, and it was melodic, and it had a sort of a beginning, middle, and an end. It was a real journey. I know it's a cliche, but he's the DJ for me that it sort of spoke to me the most, because I didn't go out dancing, and his recorded sets were something that I could listen to at home or wherever. So. Yeah, when I did go and see him live, it translated so well, and yeah, it was a real eye-opening experience. And from that moment on, it was like, right, this is what I want to do.
We'll go into your setup, your current setup in a minute, but I mean, you're best known for being the gadget man and being very tricky with the effects units and everything like that. Where did that kind of, because obviously, every DJ is different. Everybody's got their particular speciality. You became obsessed with it seems like you did, in terms of rinsing every single thing you could possibly rinse out of every mixer you got hold of. So where did that start? Because it's almost the kind of skills that you would associate with a hip hop DJ or something.
Yeah, I had a friend at school, and he used to have some direct drive turntables, and I was always jealous because I had the belt-driven ones. But I'd go to his house at lunchtime, and he's an amazing scratch DJ. I'd used to sit there, eating my chocolate bar and, cheese sandwich. I keep bringing those up. But yeah, I used to just watch him scratch, and I used to watch Yo MTV Raps with Dr. Dre, and I never was really into hip-hop music, but they always had a guy in the background who was scratching and doing all this mad stuff, and you could just sort of work out what was going on if you listened carefully and watched what was happening, sort of beneath the presenter. And that always fascinated me, that sort of technicality of it all. And I'd say that I probably got into the technical side of DJing before I really liked the music, because I was working in a record shop, and one of the guys there taught me how to mix and showed me what beat matching was and scratching, and I didn't really have a love for the music at that point. It was really just like, oh, that's cool, I'd love to learn how to do that. It was, for me, that was like any skill, like learning to juggle or skateboard or whatever else I was doing. And yeah, I was more fascinated with the skill than the actual music, and then the music came a bit later, as I described.
Okay, so let's come up to date then, and just talk us through what you've got in front of you. And I play. This is your kind of regular.
Yeah. This is what I play with when I show up to clubs.
Just point out what would be in a club, because I remember the days when no one had these, and you used to carry two around.
Yeah, I did. I had flight cases, and I carried these around. Yeah. And,
because we should say you've become a bit of an ambassador for Pioneer as well.
Yeah, other brands are available.
Other brands are available, of course, the BBC. But they use you as to test the technology, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. I work with them on
You're like the Stig.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I work with them on the firmware, so I test and help them develop the software that's inside the machines. In fact, new firmware came out for these today. And the great thing about these is they can constantly be upgraded. I mean, with anything you buy these days, with a hard drive in, you know, mixers, laptops, whatever, you know, washing machines, you can upgrade the firmware in it after a while. So I work with them on that.
So just to go back to the setup then for those, you know, on a basic level for people who never seen this
when you go
before.
to a club, there's a mixer and 2 turntables. That's the standard setup. So all this other stuff I bring with me. It's all the extra gizmos. And sometimes, you know, you'll get there and everything's set up nice and it's great, but often it's not, or something isn't working. So I always try and bring my own stuff. I even brought my own effects unit with me today, just in case the BBC couldn't be trusted. Wire it up properly. But you did.
So just what's doing what on the most basic level for those that don't know. So where's the music coming from?
Right. Well, these are the CDJs, and then you know traditionally you'd put your CD in, and you know even that sounds old school now. It sounds mad, really. Going from talking about belt-driven turntables to these, but yeah, you put your CD in, you'd mix them together in the same way that you'd mix vinyl, and you can scratch and whatever. But all the music is coming off an SD card. There's actually no CDs in these, although they do play CDs. All my music comes off a 32 gig card or the laptop, which I'll get to in a minute. So yeah, you've got a browsing screen, which is just like flicking through your record box, the same way really. You get the artwork and everything if you can be bothered to put it in. I'm too lazy most of the time. So yeah,
a lot of controversy as you know, people had to drop off vinyl, move to CDs.
It's a psychological thing.
Then to computers, then to sticks, and now to SD cards. Do you find it you're seeing the advantage as opposed to the disadvantage, or because you get some people I know get lost in here, like
yeah, that's like I say, it's a psychological thing. So they really try and make it. You know, they try and keep the principle of going through your music collection, you know, the same. Because a lot of DJs are Luddites, you know, they sort of prefer to not change and evolve. And I think to survive in the industry these days, especially in the last sort of 5 years where everything's just gone, technology's gone bananas, you really have to stay ahead of it. So they design these with that in mind. So it is actually like browsing through your music.
Camera's going in there, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter.
All right.
Yeah.
But so the additions then on top of what? So firstly the effects unit.
Oh yeah, the effects unit.
Because you've actually got one in this mixer, but you always insist on bringing this one.
That's right. That's because this can do things that can't, and that can do things that this can't. I mean, this is quite old school now as well. And the newer bits that I've added to my set, we'll get to in a second. But this effects unit's great because it's really not just a machine that does echoes and you know flanges and makes silly noises. It actually, you can use it like a sampler. It does feedback loops. So if I've got this drum, put an echo on it, you can actually make that loop up. And you can make tracks on the fly. So we've got this little K oscillator, which I'll get into in more detail. We've got a nice hi-hat there. Turn that off for a second. And a snare. So you can actually build tracks on the fly with this, you know, just with synthesis or whatever sounds you want to put in it. And edit it and mess around. So that's why I like that. It was never designed to do that, but that's my sole purpose for using this in my sets. You know, otherwise I would just leave that at home and I would just be content with this. But this sadly doesn't do that.
Seems so attractive. Why didn't they get that to do that?
It does it in different ways. It does it in different ways, but you can't. It's not something that's that easy to do or that obvious, which is why they probably left it out of the manual and things.
Okay. So aside from the original music, well, other people's music as well, obviously that's coming off the SD cards, you also choose to travel with a laptop, which has other bits and pieces on. Just tell us how you use that.
Well, I sort of fleet in and out of these, the traditional method of DJing. So I've got sort of one foot in the past and one in the future, if you like, because with Ableton Live, which is what I run on the laptop, you can really edit and deconstruct tracks. I use it as like a giant effects unit. So I've got a bank of sounds on here. So it's great for like, let's turn that up a bit.
And you're using the iPad as a MIDI controller?
Yeah, that's right. So the iPad, you set up a Wi-Fi network, an ad hoc network it's called, on your laptop, and you lock it to stop people in clubs with their mobile phones hacking into your Wi-Fi. Let's turn that off. And you send what's called control data over a Wi-Fi network. So it's no different to using something like this, which is just plugged straight into the laptop, except the control data is going through the air. So I use that like a giant effects unit. And then also, if I want to do something like a crazy mashup of a track, or I've got a track like this Daft Punk thing, which is only 2 minutes long. If I can
I think you
find
should
it.
play it now. We'll have a musical interlude.
I will, yeah, I will, and I'll just try and explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it, which will probably be really difficult because I don't usually talk through my DJing sets, unlike you. That sounds really fast for some reason. Right. So if I just go through this, I think you just saw that, which is a gator thing, which I made. You can make they're called racks in Ableton, and you make your own sort of customized effects chains. So for me, that's the appeal of using that. And then in here, there's like 6 pages of controls, which you just scroll through at the top. And let's go through each page. So, although I don't use Tractor, the great thing about Ableton is it takes third-party plugins. So I've got Tractor effects in Ableton. So if I switch this on, I've got a nice Tractor reverb there. And then the way it's linked up is so that everything bleeds into each effect, so it becomes smooth.
You programmed it that way?
Yeah, that's right. And then third-party plugins, like these are things that you can just download off the internet for free, made by nerds in their bedroom. Stuff like that. And then things like that. So yeah, lots of different effects. And then simple things like filters. So you can filter mix from one track to another. So if I just find another track quickly, what have we got? Right, here we go. So at the moment I've got this track which is filtered up. If I just turn that off for a sec, you can hear that there. So you can filter mix one into the other. And then bleed that out. And then, you know, but the thing about Ableton is you are rearranging your music. So if I wanted to tease that out for a bit, I could, or if I wanted to drop it, I could use some effects and drop into the bass line. So that's, yeah, there's lots of creative potential for that. But with that, you have to put a lot of preparation into it. So you have to chop all your tracks up into bits and For me, that's actually quite good fun. Like when I'm traveling to gigs, I'm on the train or the plane or whatever, and I'm just there like cutting up different drum loops and things. And it gives you the ability to mix tracks that wouldn't usually mix together. Like say you've got two tracks that are totally out of key, although there's one bar in the middle that's just got some percussion or less melodic elements. You can take that part and then loop it, extend it, and then put other bits with it and layer all different things. There's no limit. I mean, I've only got 2 channels controllable on here, but I can add as many channels as I want, and you can reroute things all into one channel, and yes, it can get as complicated as you want it to. I try and keep it fairly simple.
I was going to say, because some of the things you're doing on here, you could actually do on here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could do a filter mix on there. I mean, I was just trying to sort of show an example. But another thing you can do, if I just move this over, here, another reason that I use Ableton is because I started to play a lot of different tempo tracks. So if I want to go from this into a drum and bass track, I can show you how I do that. Here we go. Right, so first of all, you can automate your, set your pitch range. So at the moment, I've got it set to, 126, and I use this to control the pitch, and actually not this, although you can use this, but it's not as accurate. So this whole mixer doubles up as a control surface as well. So for example, if I move a control on here, you can see the fader actually moves on here. So I can always tell what's going on if I'm using this just by looking at the iPad. So sometimes at gigs, people will be like, oh, how come you're always looking at your iPad and not actually touching it? That's because sometimes the effects, I prefer to have more of a hands-on tactile control, and I sweat a lot when I do gigs, so I'm like, it doesn't work so well when it's covered in water, so sometimes you just need to, you know, have real sort of hands-on control, and that's why I have this as well, which I'll get to in a bit. So if I get this pitch range, which is here, and I set it to be 126, which is what we're at now, to 174, which is like a drum and bass type tempo. So I'll just do that quickly. Now at the bottom it's 126, now it's 174. So there's ways of using your effects and your layout, and you know, the way I've designed it is so I can go from one style to another. So if I change my filter from a high pass to a low pass, use some reverbs and stuff, I should be able to get from this into a drum and bass track, in theory. I'm probably going to mess this up now, so I'll try it. Right. Oh, that's the other thing. Like, these 2 tracks harmonise as well, and that's something that you learn about. That's something I learned from Sasha, you know, watching him mix. He would always mix in key, or at least mix tracks which would melodically complement each other. There's nothing worse than you know, a gnarly key clash to sort of make your skin crawl. So these kind of work together. So I've got this pad. And I'm using the reverb. I've got a reverb on each channel, and it's post-fader reverb, so you can sort of bleed it in and out again. There's that. And I've actually just changed the tempo there. And if I get another instance of this track, get into the drum and bass track. Kind of like that. Okay, so that's just how I'd get from one tempo to a drastically different tempo. Oh, and the other great thing about this is you can turn the control surface on or off, so I'm not accidentally going to hit something and change the tempo back. Going back to what I was saying about the iPad and sweating all over it, you know, I jump about a lot when I'm DJing, so it's kind of like my gym workout. And also, there's an element of latency sometimes, especially if there's a lot of Wi-Fi networks in the area. You can, we're all right in here, but sometimes there's latency or it's slipping out of my hand or whatever because I'm so gross, like a sweaty, horrible monster.
You've got that as a backup, basically doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I can feel my way around it. I don't have to see what I'm doing. And it's really, because I can feel all the buttons, I know where everything is. I've used it a lot of times now, so it's really... You know, I can do it with my eyes closed now. Looks nice as well, the buttons light up.
That's
yeah,
good.
so that's that, yeah. And it's pretty solid as well. I mean, I've tried different things out, and I'm always changing my bits of equipment, you know, swapping things and experimenting with it. So I used to use these nano pads, but again, they don't seem to like it when I sweat over them and get wet. But yeah, they don't deal so well on the humidity. But these are like £28. You can get them now on Amazon.
Yeah, they do a keyboard as well, don't they?
I'm going to give these away, actually. Give these out.
You see a lot of people writing on the little keyboard, DJs on planes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's a nice one-octave keyboard.
Exactly.
I think it's two, actually. But
I'm conscious of the fact we've been talking almost for half an hour and you've barely touched what 99% of the population would consider to be DJing. I mean,
yeah,
it's a fine line between live performance, really. Even though you're often reinterpreting other people's music, it really is a radical reinterpretation. What percentage of your shows are you actually playing tracks out of the CD players?
Well, I sort of introduced this slowly because, like I say, I mean, I've got sort of one foot in the past. I like the traditional mixing and scratching of the old style of DJing, or what's considered the old style of DJing. But I'd still probably say most of my music is played off here, yeah. And then when I want to do something that's performance related or creative, I'll go into that. I think that if I did my whole sets off that, I'd probably find it a bit boring, I think, because I like to...
Because you'd be going... It's less spontaneous in terms of so much preparation.
Yeah, that's right. And just to go back to these...
Do you want to just give us a little bit of a run-through on the CDJ 2000s then?
Yeah,
in terms of what's changed about them as well, because obviously they became like the old Technics turntables.
Yeah, that's right.
They became the industry standard. I would say, again, 99% of the clubs around the world will have these or the version before.
Yeah, that's right.
Why was that, do you think?
Convenience. You know, you can walk into a club with a pair of headphones and a small CD wallet. I mean, I still carry a CD wallet because you just never know how, you know.
I was going to ask you what happens when it all goes wrong, especially for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the good thing about this...
You stick on this.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. That's what I do. Never goes wrong.
Well, the thing is, it's unlikely that this and this is going to go down. I don't think that's ever happened. I think if these ever go down, it's normally like the link cable's broken or something, so at least you can go backwards and forwards from one to the other. There's all different ways of getting around the problems, but yeah, you know, it'd be foolish.
It's quite bonkers with these now. I was in Creamfields in Argentina, and I was backstage with David Guetta, and he was about to go on. He was headlining the main stage, and he said, "This is the best." You know, he's obviously superstar now, playing all over the world. He says it's the best festival I've ever done. Absolutely amazing. And you know, gigantic stage, gigantic light show, and he was just standing there backstage. Can I take that out? Is it going to screw you up?
No, you can take it out.
You've only got one of them.
Yeah, there's only one there.
I know, but anyway, so his whole thing was like, it used to be, you know, boxes of records and like roadies and helps and blah blah blah. And he was just standing there with literally an SD card, and it was all going to go off that. It does seem. It does seem odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Yeah, 32 gig SD card.
That's what we need.
And yeah, I mean, you can get 64 gig ones now, but I don't know if these read that. But
yeah,
it's only a matter of time.
He doesn't play that many records.
That is a lot of music.
Yeah, exactly.
Even as WAVs, it's quite a lot. But yeah.
So in terms of what these can do now without...
What you can do now is obviously all the traditional stuff, but you've got Recordbox, which is the program that you organise your music in. It's a database piece of software, but it analyses all of your waveforms. So when you play a track, the waveform comes up straight away. You can see where your breakdowns and everything are. Then you can set hot cues. So if I hold this down, here's some I made earlier. So I can always jump to that part straight away. And then this isn't something I would use as a hot cue, but they come up as little markers on the screen. So I sometimes use these to work out where I am on a track, especially if it's a track that I haven't played very often. Like the first time I played this, I wanted to know, you know, where that vocal, when the vocal was going to hit. So I could see the marker as it was approaching that. So I use them as visual markers as well. Actually the same in Ableton. In Ableton you warp your tracks so that they all play at a certain fixed tempo. You know, you warp them to a metronome. And sometimes I'll put warp markers in just to remind me when, you know, a bass line is going to come in or a certain element of the track. So there are many uses for those. And this has also a quantized loop. Whereas with the old CDJs, it was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, just explain. I mean, obviously, again, to basic man in the street, DJing is meant to be sequencing 2 records together and keeping them in time.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of the new technology now, you don't really focus on that anymore because the technology does it for you, and you want to be creative and do other stuff. But with these, there's still an element of mixing with these CD players, but they will help you, right?
They will. Well, as I was saying, the database software analyzes all your music, so you can quantize all your tracks. So when you do a loop, even if you do it wrong, on the second go round, it's corrected it, yeah. And also it will stay at that fixed BPM, whereas the old players, they were only, you know, to 0.3 frames or something like that. So you could only get it so accurate. So even if you were mixing and you did a perfect, or the most perfect loop, if you hit it perfectly in time, if you had 2 tracks playing at once, one of them's going to go out of time, and it was, you know, it was like spinning plates to keep them in time. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. And also, you've got a decimal point on the BPM counter, so you can even, you know, load another track up and then just match the BPMs by looking at the counter, and you know you're going to be virtually in time. So that's like 125.9.
Prove it.
All right, let's try it. So that's 126. All right, what was it? 125.9. There you go. So it might be like a tiny bit out, but it's going to be. You know, you can adjust the pitch gradually and just ride the pitch. Anyway, you get the idea. Whereas before, if you had 2 turntables and headphones, all you had was your ears to do that. Whereas that was all visual and no headphones. Okay. So it's easier than it's ever been to beat match. So that's kind of why you have to sort of evolve and bring new things into your sets, like, you know, like all this and whatever everyone else is doing.
How much to you is about actually? I mean, you're one of these DJs. I think that you don't. I mean, you're a crowd pleaser, but you're not. But you
play quite weird music.
Yeah,
sometimes.
you do play weird music, James.
That's what you're trying to.
About that.
That's what you're trying to say.
But yeah, yeah. Tell us about that. You're you know, as you travel around and you're listening to all this music, are you you're in your own space, really, aren't you? You don't really fit in with any particular trend.
Yeah, I'm an outcast.
Yeah,
it's a tough place to be.
Who do you think? Who out there do you? I mean, we talked about Sasha being a massive influence on you at the beginning. In terms of, do you have technology dons now you look up to? Do you still think somebody's ahead of you?
Yeah,
like
other
people out there that you...
Yeah, I always see, like, every now and again, obviously I'm doing gigs like most weekends, so I see other DJs and I'm always interested in what other people are doing. Like I saw Chris Liebing recently, he had 2 laptops, Native Instruments machine, which is like a drum programmer. It's like a step sequencer, and it runs with Traktor. And he had Ableton Live on one, Traktor on the other. it was a an IT nerd's wet dream. But it was cool what he was doing. It was amazing, you know. And for his music, which is very sort of just techno, straight techno, it was great because it lends itself really well to, you know, all that step sequencing and mashing up and layering different drum parts from different tracks. I mean, he had all sorts of stuff going on, and yeah, I found that really exciting.
And is it because you are so interested in all this stuff? Yeah, I mean, do you wake up one day and go, I'm going to try a whole different setup, or it's more evolution with you? Because Tractors are very. Maybe you should just explain, because other than these, Tractor's probably the most dominant program out there, particularly in the world of techno. And why someone might choose to use Tractor versus the CD players?
Well, yeah, I mean, Tractor. I actually did some work with the first Tractor Pro. Like, I did some beta testing, and I used it for, you know, the best part of a year, and I enjoyed it, and it was fun. But I just wanted to do other things, so I switched back to Ableton, and then back to these. But yeah, it's a great program, and the reason I guess people use it is because it's kind of plug in and play, and it's the convenience as well of having controllers which you can just plug in, everything works straight away, or in theory, and it's a convenience thing again. It's like you're not burning CDs anymore, you know, and I think that's a bad reason to use Tractor, but no doubt when Tractor and Serato came out, there were DJs that were using it purely because they didn't want to burn CDs.
Well, I used to burn CDs. I remember when I started using Serato, and the only advantage was that the DJ would come in the booth, ask you for that track, you'd give them the CD, you go to your next gig, and then you forgot to reburn it. That was the other most common one. I mean, in America, particularly in America now, you go to a DJ booth, you will see the CD players, but the most dominant thing will be a stand for the computer.
Yep.
I would say, particularly in the world of anything outside of house music, it's like Serato is like a massively dominant force over there, and then Tractor being the higher end version of it, I suppose, second. Yep. But I think the majority of the way people use Serato and Tractor then is just playing music out of the computer, putting code discs in here, and still manipulating the turntables, right?
Yeah.
Well, I personally don't. But
no, there's a lot more that just use the
internal
control.
It's called,
yeah, internal modes. That's right. Although I always like the appeal of using the time codes with turntables, but I never really understood, you know, using it with the CDJs with the time codes. It was actually easier just to put a CD in, and at the start of your set, it's that stressful, like plugging everything in, you know, because with time code, you have to send a time-coded signal from here. So you put a CD in, it sends ones and zeros back and forwards to the computer. So it goes through the sound card, back into the mixer, and then it's like, there's also latency, of course, when you're doing stuff like that. And I always found that a bit strange. With vinyl, it sort of made more sense to do it like that, and that was one direction that I was heading in for a while, and then, you know, something new comes out, and oh yeah.
Common question you must get asked, or you do a lot of kind of showing off on the technology, and as I say, working with this particular manufacturer. Do you think DJs become too? I mean, it doesn't look easy standing next to you, but do you think the technology is making DJing too easy? And some of that original purist skill off vinyl is being lost? Because obviously there's a whole generation now that are growing up and they wouldn't even know what a turntable was, as in
or even
track.
CDs. Yeah. You know. Yeah, I think it can be used for evil.
Yeah.
It's a force for evil. All good. Like, I showed my dad Tractor. We were sat at my parents' house, and I was like, "There, look at this, Dad. You know, you just push this button, and you've got 4 decks, and they all play instantly." He just looked at me and said, "Isn't that cheating?" Yeah. I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess so. But you have to then make up for that, you know." And I like to beat match still, so I still do the sort of old style of DJing, even though a lot of people see me as like this ambassador for new stuff.
Mr. Gadget.
Yeah. You know, I'm still like scratching and doing. You're
still making mistakes?
Still making mistakes, yeah, all the time. So yeah, I'm just always one foot in the old, one foot in the new. But yeah, it can
Well, that lead us on to the next point I want to make, which is, I mean, when I get asked what DJing is all about, I've always thought, I mean, it's changed in the modern era, but there's one thing that's always been true to me, which is it's the ability to program a sequence, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So just.
It's the art
and
of
you
playing.
certainly learned off one of the best there has ever been in terms of Sasha and telling that story, which I think is such a valuable commodity. So just let's talk through that a little bit more in terms of you know, building a set, how you go about building a set. You know, are you one of these DJs that has a starting record, an ending record, a middle record? So just tell us about how you do that and what your take on that is.
Yeah, like you say, that's sort of something that I learned from Sasha. But to use a good example was our gig at the Warehouse Project the other week. You had played, Sasha had played, and I was doing the last set, so it's kind of, I always find those sets really hard. There's only sort of one way you can go with those. It's like kick the doors down and really go for it.
It's like 4 in the morning or something.
Yeah. And for that set, you know, every set you play is obviously a different time, different size room, different atmosphere, different people, so you can never prepare for a gig unless it's something that you're used to doing, like Space in Ibiza, where I have got residency, so I sort of know what I'm doing.
So that's an important point. So Space in Ibiza, you're there pretty much every week, every other week. Mm-hmm. You're going in, you're performing at a set time, you know the audience. You go there with a set more in mind of what you're going to play for them as opposed to the way you're going to react.
Yeah. Where you know...
Whereas the Warehouse Project, in at the deep end.
That's right, yeah.
You've always been a great one for, I mean, following another DJ is a big thing between DJs. It's like how, you know, the guy before you tends to end, you know, very large, and you know, it's like a wrestling match trying to kill you, put you down to death, and then you've got to follow that. Some people try and mix out of the guy or the girl's last record. Other people just stop, you know.
I like stitching people up by playing drum and bass.
Yeah, well, you've done that. We've played together many times. You've done some of the most inventive things I've ever seen. You've sampled my voice before when I introduced you, which I thought was quite clever. I'd never seen that before.
I thought about doing that now, but you're not running into the mixer, sadly.
But you tend to. This is where the K-oscillator comes in for you, because you quite often start by kind of making up something completely new, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is really just a toy.
But you always manage to then sync it in time with the record you actually really want to start with. So he does it's almost like a false start, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is really just a toy. Again, this is pretty inexpensive, and this is great. It's lasted me for ages.
It's basically a synthesizer in a tiny little box.
Yeah, you know, it's got a low output, so you have to put the volume all the way up. There's no way of actually getting it in time with your music perfectly. It's got a BPM tap, which is very crude, and like my button's a bit pooped now.
I think it's got a new version of it now, haven't they?
Yeah, there's a K-oscillator Pro, but it's like this big, and I'm too lazy to carry it around. And also, because I've got this as well, this is how I sort of get this in time with my music. It sort of comes to life when you, I don't know, add other effects to it. So I've got white noise, but then, you know, it's sort of, it's not a toy anymore when you combine it with other things, yeah. Yeah, so I love this. And there's actually little secret things you can do with this. I won't go into any real nerdy detail, but if you hold these two buttons down, you get a delay mode. So then you can make 16 beat loops on it instead of 8 beats. So if I just get a drum loop up, where is it? That's doubling over at the moment. If I change the loop, I can go to 16, which you can't usually do that. And that does feedback loops, actually almost like this does. Now when that comes back around, it will actually remember me doing that. I mean, it didn't sound that great, but you can edit it out and whatever. So if you hear a section that you like that bit, so yeah, there's more to this than meets the eye as well. It's kind of like, that's kind of my thing, I suppose, is just using things how they're not meant to be used. There's
Yeah,
a
well,
sort of, there's a cheap thrill in that.
Spending time on planes with the headphone jack plugged into it, I suppose.
Yeah.
What? So just back to that set. In terms of average set, you play 2-3 hours.
Yeah, two to three. I think.
And what are you gonna? What do you always want to include in your set? What's the journey? Is there a familiar pattern or?
Yeah, I mean you have those tracks.
Are you one for always having to play new music? I'm always obsessed with. I always want to play new music.
Yeah, you can't always do that, and there is something to be said for knowing your music really well. It's weird. Like I always take quite a lot of time off at the start of the year. So at the moment, I'm not playing very much, and I'll get into the swing of gigs again. And then you start to know what's in your record box, and then you no longer have to look at these markers which you initially set out for yourself to remind you when the incredibly loud snare is going to come in or whatever. And you get familiarised with your music to the point where you know it inside out. And then you add, the way I do it is that if I'm gigging, which I do sort of all year round, most weekends, I add new tracks in as I go along, but not.
You've got the
I don't suddenly flip and play all new tracks because I feel a little bit sort of lost.
And then there'll be, I suppose there'll be your specials, your kind of set pieces in the set.
Over the course of a month, like if you look at what you're playing at the start of the month and then look at your box at the end of the month, it's totally different, but it's not. It's sort of gradually got to that point. Okay. So you always, it's important to know your music well. I've always said that.
An age-old question, and how do you cope with all the music that's out there? You must get sent absolutely everything. You're probably buying as much as you can.
It's funny, because I get sent so much stuff that I end up buying a lot of the music that I play. And often I'll find that I've been sent something, months ago or something, but I've just gone and bought it anyway, because it's easier for me to just go and buy things which I know when I'm record shopping, I know what I'm looking for. Whereas if I'm going through a whole load of demos and things that I've been sent, it's like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes to find something that I'll play.
And how do you find, going to an actual shop obviously is, again, another a dying breed,
Well,
unfortunately. Yeah. Are you a big online shopper?
Yeah.
And how do you, what services
and I still
do you
buy vinyl.
You do buy vinyl?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you order it? Or do you actually, you've got a place you can go and buy it?
No, I order it. I order it online, yeah. I mean, I used to work in the record shop in Southampton, so it's quite, I still sort of walk past the demolished building, which turned into a tanning salon.
But you don't use vinyl when you play, so what are you doing with the vinyl when you get it?
Obviously, I don't go in the tanning salon. I record it all in. I record it all in, and then, I play it off here or here. But
almost everything that's vinyl now will be available online. I know some of
there are
techno
some
labels will try and release, or drum and bass labels put something on vinyl for a while.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Like a lot of the Hessel audio stuff, a lot of 50 Weapons tracks, they always come out on vinyl first, even though they eventually do get digital. I always order the vinyls. But I'm also a collector, There's that part of me which is still into a tactile thing, and it's just nice to have a pristine collection of records, actually, as opposed to my old collection of records, which are all sort of ruined and knackered from.
You can replace
DJing,
everything now as well. That's the other thing, I suppose. Well, a lot of it anyway. And in terms of buying online and like accessing music, you enjoy that experience. You can get enough of a vibe of a track. The other thing I find personally is you listen to so much music on headphones.
Yeah.
Because you're traveling, or because you're sitting in the corner of a studio or an office somewhere, and then and you can miss things. You eventually hear something out one day loud, or you get to play it in your studio.
Yeah, again, it's a track that makes sense.
What's that? It's like you had it like 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's like going back to what I was saying. Some tracks only make sense when they've got some weight behind them, and you don't get that from an iPod dock.
Okay.
So yeah, you do miss things.
Just in terms, just looking conscious of time there. If we want to go, right, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Do we want to open up some questions? Yeah. Maybe. I think, maybe time we could open up now to ask a couple of questions from our audience. If you've got, I'm sure you must have some. In terms of what James is up to here. Any questions from the audience?
Yes.
Well, while they're thinking of a question, where's it going next, do you think, in terms of the next layer of technology?
It's almost...
DJing, performing, I mean, you've got to, you know, I suppose a new thing in the new era is, you know, David Guetta's Swedish House Mafia, DJs now playing like bands, really. I mean, we always had the Chemical Brothers and the Prodigy and all those bands, and you know, there's a few of those around today as well, that will just go to a gig with Ableton or with Logic main stage and reinterpret the music they make in the studio live. But you've got DJs now who are playing on as bigger stages, if not bigger, with light shows and stuff like that. With deadmau5. Do you see it now? It's just the lines are completely blurred?
Yeah, I think so. And like, you know, the more this technology has been involved with the DJing, the more you can do. Like, I'm learning to play the guitar at the moment. I mean, I wouldn't expect to see it in any of my sets anytime soon. But yeah, I've got sore fingers, like, there you go. But I was running my electro-acoustic guitar into my effects unit last night, because that's the crazy stuff I do when I'm at home, just for fun. And you know, making feedback loops with my guitar. So you really can do anything. Now we've got you know, these interfaces. You can literally, it's limitless. And like you say, DJing, it's almost like, what is it now? It is deadmau5 DJing. He's playing all his own stuff. He's not using turntables, and I believe he uses Ableton. But it's sort of unclassifiable, really, because it's not what I would say is a...
I mean, when I think of a live... someone watching this now, you know, I just like music. I've just got my taste, and I just want to get it out there. I mean, is there a place for a DJ that just wants to go out and play records, or, you know, files?
Yeah, I think so, because there's still an art, like, going back to what we're talking about, building a set and telling that story, there's still an art to playing other people's music. And there aren't many DJs that do that really, really well. So much now, because a lot of people are making music, they're not DJs, and they want to play out, and that's the beauty of something like Traktor. You can just go and do it. Yeah.
Well, I think you see it a lot.
And I think it's
two
good.
extremes, isn't there? There's as I say, there's the Swedish House Mafia style, and then there's the and they're very tricky. I have to say, they were equally really into the CD players, weren't they? And like the effects units and stuff like that. And a lot of the things you hear in their music now, like the beginning of One, was actually started from like a trick on here of slowing down a record to a tiny bit of a beat and letting it go. But then, yeah, on the other side, Richie Hawtin, obviously, just getting deep into Traktor, just layering beats. I joke with Richie, if he's ever played a record from the start to finish, I don't think he ever has, because it's all about just getting deep and deep into tracks, looping them and affecting them. And those guys, I don't think they'll ever play the same set twice. It's impossible.
Yeah, that's right, and that's kind of the same with me sometimes. Like, even if I've got a gig on a Friday and Saturday and I haven't put any new music in, and I'm playing, you know, almost all the same tracks, it could sort of go in different directions because of the way that you're able to edit things now. But you know, also it's important to know when not to use it, when to stand back, and that's something I sort of learnt the hard way. You know, I got a lot of criticism when I first started getting really techie and nerdy.
James, play us a tune.
Yeah, exactly. And I did get that. So I got that feedback. You know, I remember a message I got on MySpace ages ago, before Facebook killed it off. Just someone really saying, "Oh, you should just play the song," and that, it was good. It's good to get criticism like that because you do need it. And he was right. And now that's kind of why I've still got these, and why some tracks, they just need to be played, and they're made and arranged perfectly.
Exactly, because somebody's spent 6 weeks actually.
Yeah, and then you come along and destroy their work. Yeah.
If you were starting today, you've mentioned Facebook and MySpace there. If you were starting today, how would you be promoting yourself in the modern era?
Oh, if I was starting, I'd be all over everything, like SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Facebook, MySpace. It's the avenues that weren't there when I started to play, and I think that's how you really need to do it. But I mean, it's difficult because you don't want to spam people, by like, you know,
I mean, when you do it,
if your Twitter feed's nothing but stuff, you know, promo mixes, you don't become a very interesting person to follow. If you're constantly, you know, replying DJs with your mix, it's kind of, it's just noise. There's so much noise with Facebook and everything at the moment, like event invites, my new mix, this, that, and the other. So I think the key is to be persistent.
I was going to say, what are your instincts? What do you find yourself? Just you've kind of navigated the waters. Where would you go?
Well, when I started, it was easy for me because I worked in a record shop, so I was in a position of power. Because the people that would come into the shop, the promoters and the DJs, would be like, "Oh, can we put a poster up?" I'd be like, "Yeah, if you give me a gig." And they'd be like, "No." But I just annoy people in the end into giving me gigs. Like, give us a gig, no. Give us a gig, no. Give us a gig, no. All right. It was kind of like that. And
so in the modern world now, you can, I mean,
but you can't do that.
No. But you can put your mix straight away online. You can create a SoundCloud page. You can, and then.
And that's totally how I do it. If I had to start again now, but yeah, definitely. But you need to get noticed in amongst all that noise somehow.
And are you a big fan of Facebook and Twitter? Are you a big Twitterer?
I read it a lot, and I actually use it to find out. I have like lists, so I have a list of artists and DJs and musicians that I really like, and I look at that list, and I've got a list for all my friends and more personal things, and I'll go through those lists, and it's a good way of sort of keeping up to date. You know.
And in terms of SoundCloud, do you find yourself looking for new music on SoundCloud?
Yeah, I do, and more recently because I'm thinking about starting a record label, and it's a great way to discover unsigned musicians, and there's some really good stuff.
And if people are sending you music now, what's the kind of dominant way you're getting it? Is it someone pointing them to their SoundCloud page, or is it sending you that's the main?
Yeah, I mean, I have a SoundCloud account, and it's got my email address attached, so people just send me, I get a notification from SoundCloud, you know, such and such has sent you a track to download, and I'll just download them all and listen to them whilst I'm travelling.
Okay. Is that more convenient than Dropbox, for instance, or?
Dropbox is good for, Dropbox is something that I actually share with other DJs and artists, but I don't have a public Dropbox.
Relying so much on technology and living in a digital world, what's your kind of backup system? Or can you get to a gig, lose your SD card, and kind of look to the clouds and?
Yeah, this happened to me just recently. I played in Holland, and my laptop wouldn't start up. I bought a MacBook at the airport, like the cheapest one, and then all of the stuff that I had online, all my Ableton files, all my effects, all my plugins, everything, I've got it all on the cloud. So I managed to get all that down. It took me like an hour and a half or something, but I had a working live set.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Any questions from our audience here? You thought one? Here we go.
No, I was going to say, with like obviously new technology like coming about, is it a scary thing for you? Like when you get used to something and then something else comes out?
Yeah, it's annoying. It's like, oh man, sometimes it's like why do they stop? You know, why don't they just stop updating things? Even when I get a software update on my computer, I'm like, do I want to update it? Do I? Because you know, once you've done it, something's not going to work.
Yeah,
now, I've got a very old Touch OSC version on here and old iPad software. But I've got another iPad at home, which I use for beta testing. So I sort of learnt the hard way. I have like a home setup, which I use with all the new stuff and test it all. And 9 times out of 10, something, because there's so many things, especially with the laptop, you know, and with the firmware in these and everything. The firmware in this, there's so many things that can go wrong. You know, everything from someone's plugin that doesn't work on your computer to you know, an EQ curve or a filter resonance or something like that. It's always best to test it now.
Yeah, and also the other thing I was going to say is like talking about the up and coming was with Dropbox and SoundCloud. What's the with getting your music out there? DJs want to obviously get out there, and if they haven't got residence slots like most DJs have, and they want to get gigs, obviously, is it like bootlegs and like just ripping music and doing mashups, like something that you did, or like, you know, obviously doing remixes and whatnot? Is that the best thing to do to like promote yourself? Because if you're not a producer, obviously everyone else is a DJ at the moment.
Yeah, and with anyone can be a DJ because of programs like Tractor and stuff. So you just have to do things slightly different, I think, to be noticed. And there are various ways of doing that, whether it's wearing a Mickey Mouse head or, you know, whatever gimmick you want to go with. It's kind of the only way in amongst a sea of, you know, now pretty competent DJs, because anyone can do it. So it's just finding that way to stand out from everyone else.
Conscious of time here.
And that hat's a good start.
Time for one more question, maybe? Any more questions?
Any more questions? It'd be cool to see you do some more stuff.
Hold on.
It'd be nice to see you do
I'm going to hang around for a bit, so if you want to... And anyone can come and have a...
James, you can play us out. You can play us out then.
Oh,
Be a good way
God.
to end. Just press play.
Yeah. Where's that CD?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it still works. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. That has been the masterclass, DJing Wise, with Mr. James Zabila.
Thanks.